SLZ just announced their plans for this year, and they did not hold anything back. We have gotten more info in this one announcement than we did for the entire lifespan of BoneLab. 2025 goals for Brandon and his team are ginormous. We'll save the big one you came here for last. All the other stuff is also pretty big and absolutely worth going over first, but holy hell, I was not expecting any of this at all, given the past 2 years of utter suffering we've had with BoneLab. First and foremost, the one most of us could kind of guess, BoneLab's patch 7, 8, and 9 should all be releasing this year. Hopefully this happens sooner rather than later, as the longer it takes for these patches to all come out and get BoneLab finished up and out of the way, the longer it takes before we get to see those other work in progress projects I'm going to mention later release. But more importantly for BoneLab specifically, the benefit of all these updates finally releasing, we can get to that state we were at with patch 3, where modders have nothing to worry about as the game will no longer break mods each and every update. That one piece of information alone is insanely exciting, as we know that this is the last year of BoneLab being the main focus for SLZ. But even more excitingly, Marrow 2 is releasing this year as well. While the phrase Marrow 2 is exciting, as it indicates a great advancement in terms of Marrow's tools and features, we still don't actually know anything about what's actually in it. While we don't know specifics, we do have a pretty good idea that you should be able to at least make Boneworks with it. How do we know that you can make Boneworks with it? Well, you read the title. Boneworks is coming natively to the Quest 3. No LabWorks, no Boneworks port, none of that shit. An actual native port of Boneworks by SLZ will be coming to the Quest 3 natively, and it's going to be using Marrow 2. There are so many questions about this port we still desperately need answers to, but we do actually have our first bit of footage being this GIF recorded on Quest 3, with noticeably improved body tracking, and I don't know if this is using IOBT or if the player rig estimations have really just gotten this good, but regardless, it looks fantastic and it's extremely exciting. Also, Lakatraz pointed out to me that the mirror is actually reflecting objects now. This is something that did not happen before. It would just show the player, but now the mirror actually is a functional mirror and does show objects inside of it as well. This seems to be a vastly improved version of the game, both generally, if for no other reason than the fact that it's using Marrow, purely for performance in that case, and interaction-wise. And currently my main question is if this magic port will come to PC as well, since the PC version of Boneworks low-key just kinda runs like ass, especially when up against BoneLab, which runs really well. So it'd be really nice to have it there, although knowing SLZ's mindset, I'm sure we'll see a PC release. I'm not too worried about that. This Boneworks port is planned to release this year, so all these questions will have answers probably before release, I'm sure. Also, I've seen some people mention that, oh, LabWorks is doomed or something along those lines, but this Boneworks port is a Quest 3 exclusive, so at the very least, LabWorks is still an option for Quest 2 users who want to experience the game, and it's also good for those who don't want to wait for this port. Although, with it releasing this year, if you haven't already played Boneworks and want your first time to be the full experience, then I definitely probably recommend waiting for this to drop. If this Marrow 2 Boneworks port thingy, I'm just gonna call it Boneworks Remaster, I don't know what the fuck to call it. If this uses the same version of Marrow that BoneLab will in its future updates, I wonder how hard it'd be to port Fusion over to this Boneworks port. I'd imagine a lot easier than with a brand new game, although still definitely gonna take some time. But Lakatraz also does sync a lot of things in the BoneLab campaign manually and has specific code for it, and specifically, so he'd probably need to do a similar thing here for Boneworks. I also gotta wonder if SDK mods from BoneLab will naturally work over here as well. If it does, this Boneworks remastered port might low-key just be better than BoneLab since the base content is much more enjoyable. And that's not even the last thing we're going over. We have one final crazy piece of info before we end this video, and this is something we basically knew before, but now it's fully confirmed. The next game, B-Side, is starting pre-production this year. Based on this, if I had to guess, I'd say the game will probably release within 2027 or even 2028, but only time will tell. It really is excellent though that we have this Boneworks remaster sort of thing while we wait. Genuinely very, very cool and genuinely awesome work from SLZ. I don't get to cockmunch SLZ much, but this seriously deserves some absolute slobbering because doing all of this in 1 year is really awesome. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to get 10% off BoneLab or any other game, check the link in the description for a discount, and check out my last video where I go over some work in progress intelligent NPCs for BoneLab. I'll catch you next time, pregnant gangsters.